I used to be a J-pop idol, and so I'm gonna talk about why I left. And it's not what you think. I actually really enjoyed my time being an idol. Of course, there were things that like I wish were different, but don't most of us have that with jobs? At first I am gonna shower because my hair won't even last a whole day without needing to be washed again. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, you should just like let it run its course and then do no washes and your hair is gonna be like baby no money. Okay, sir, you're Armenian, so you can do whatever you want and your hair's gonna look amazing. But I can't do it. Maybe it's a white people thing, and being half white and half Japanese, whatever genes I'm gonna get are always a mixed bag. And the hair thing, I can't do it. I have to wash it. Why I even became an idol, that was never anything that I actively sought out. My mom thought I was cute or something. My dad was stationed in, wow, that's messy. I'm gonna back up a little bit so you can't see that. My dad was stationed in Korea, and my mom thought I was cute and knew that I liked performing. I loved modeling. I don't know, I had shown interest in that type of stuff. So she sent my picture to this man who had an online, I don't even know how she found it, but she sent my picture into this website and was like, hey, I was wondering if my daughter could model for you. I was 16 at the time, and they responded with, oh, your daughter's a little bit young for the kind of clothing that we do, but thanks anyway. And she could have ended it there, right? She could have been like, okay, thank you, and then, I don't know, tried a different company or did it try again. And she wasn't telling me she was doing this because I think she knew she didn't want to tell me until she had an opportunity for me. But when that guy came back and said, no thanks, she responded to him and said, okay, but if there's anybody else that you know that she could work for, we would love to hear back from you. And guess what? Hello. I have a tripod somewhere, but I can't find it, so we're just gonna have to make do. So I start modeling for this Korean online shopping mall, right? And he does Hurley and Burton and snowboarding, surfing, things like that. Little did I know, because I didn't at that time, that someday I would be a snowboarder. Crazy. So I did that, and then that kind of ignited this love for modeling, and I loved doing it. And then I would visit Japan, Okinawa, every single year. Okinawa is where my mom is from. I already know that there's so many stories that I want to share with you guys because there's so much that has happened in my life that I want to share, the good and the bad. The story of how my parents got together, that story, I should write a book about it. The story of my dad's upbringing, I should write a book about it. Stories from my life in Japan, there are so many books that I could write about it. Well, good thing I'm trying to be an author then. And I definitely think I'll end up writing a lot of stories that are either based on Japan, take place in Japan, are combined with Japanese mythology. I love Japan so much, but I didn't always. And I feel like that's a whole side story too. I'm gonna try to stick to the main plot line today because otherwise this video will be really long, but I do have a lot of side stories. So subscribe and eventually I will get to them. I will. Every summer I would visit Okinawa. I would spend 3 months summer vacation, spending time with my grandparents, going to Okinawa and really doing nothing. My grandma lived in a place where you knew once you were there because it smelled like cows. And it was in the middle of nowhere, super countryside. Now it's actually bustling, and the island that I grew up on and spent all of my summers is now one of the hottest tourist destinations in Okinawa, and that was never ever the case. It's crazy how much things have changed. But that all being said, that's where I grew up and I had absolutely nothing to do. I'm trying to tell you how inaka, the Japanese word is inaka, which is how countryside, how middle of nowhere where my grandma lived was. I don't really have I would have to walk down the street to get to the closest store. The roads were so narrow, infested with cockroaches. One day we got into the car at night and it had been kind of cool during the evening, right? And it's jungle. But right next to the beautiful ocean. My cousin and I would walk to the ocean and we would just sit there and squeeze sea cucumbers at each other and throw jellyfish at each other. And we were not very conscientious of the fact that living creatures had feelings. And I am so sorry as an adult. But at the time, I have another side story. The moment I realized my biggest regret in life, one of them, my cousin and I were out by the seawall having a grand day, just standing there in our undie pants, which is something we would often do. I have a home video of my grandpa, 3 of his grandchildren, all in underwear, middle of a typhoon, just winds blasting, trees falling, and he has rope tied around each of us, and he's holding us from the shore as we play in the waves. This is the biggest tangent, I'm so sorry, but you know what? We should probably reel it back in. That's a story for another time, but I want to tell it. I have the ability to skip ahead. So we are at the seawall and we love hermit crabs, and Okinawa has giant hermit crabs. And so we're like, let's race the hermit crabs. Me and my cousin get 10 hermit crabs and we bring them up to the top of the seawall, which is stone stairs that descend into the ocean. And we put them at the top and we're like, once we have 50, we'll start the race. So we leave 10 of them there and we come back down, get some more hermit crabs, and we go up. And by the time we get back up, the 10 hermit crab have died. We killed them. And the shock was so jarring that to this day I cannot kill ants. My empath mode was activated, and to this day I will not kill an ant unless I really have to, and then even then I'm crying and apologizing the whole time. It's not fun. So, what were we talking about? So, I was in Okinawa every single year, and I was so bored. When I was young, it was really fun just exploring and catching cicadas, throwing jellyfish. But then eventually I got to an age when all my cousins were too busy to hang out with me. They were doing school, they were doing extracurricular activities, this and that. And I didn't have anything to do, so I told my mom, I was like, please, I don't mind coming to Okinawa every summer. I love it. I love seeing my grandparents. I love spending time with you, but I need a hobby. I need something to do. So my mom's like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. I always loved dance. I love dance. Put me in a dance school. So my mom finds a dance school through a blog online, and this dance school does dance and has a dance group, but also doubles as a talent agency. So then I start going, and I start getting jobs. My first job I became a wedding dress model, being half in my generation. Generation before me, you're half, you get stoned upon entering elementary school gates. My generation, all of the celebrities were half, and being a half baby equals, oh, that's why you're so cute. So I was very lucky to be just wanting to be in modeling in this time, in this era, because I was exactly the look that they were looking for, especially for bridal stuff. So I had to stay very fair. I wasn't even allowed to sit next to the window with the blinds closed because that's how strong the UV rays are in Okinawa. I would cover up, I would just stay as pale and fair as possible and take care of my eating, and I had to wash my hair in a really specific way because bacne, I couldn't have bacne. And people might be like, oh my god, you had to do so much, you had to go through so much. The benefit of that was that I got flown out to Guam, Bali, Hawaii, and I got to wear beautiful wedding dresses and be treated like a princess all day long in these beautiful locations. And then on top of that, get paid for it. So I don't really have complaints. Sometimes you have to make the sacrifices. And the sacrifices I was making compared to the benefits that I was getting, no complaints. I feel like this is starting to already become this is gonna be a really long video. I'm so sorry. Water! If you like ube, go to Okinawa, go to Blue Seal ice cream and get the ube flavored. It's actually really good. Anyway, back to the story. So by this point, I am a part of their hip hop girls group, and we're competing, we're doing really great. And then one year, we're doing a talent show, and we 5 girls were asked to sing a song, and we're like, we don't sing. We're just like hip hop girls, and they're like, sing a song, do this performance, it's gonna be great. And we're like, I guess. So we sing that one song, I love you, baby, and if it's quite alright, I need you, baby. That one. And da da da. So we did that, and then it turns out it's because they had scouts coming from Tokyo watching us, and that is how we started debuting as Lucky Colors. Why Lucky Colors? We got a psychic, like a feng shui psychic, to read our auras and our colors, and mine was purple. And so we each had our own colors, and we were Lucky Colors. And I wish I had more input and love for the group so that I could tell them that the costumes were awful and the fashion was awful and the music was pretty catchy, pretty popular. We were funny, but it just wasn't it. It just wasn't it, but we loved it. And I had the hardest schedule ever. God bless my mom. My mom was there supporting me after high school instead of joining the military like my original plan was, which thank God I didn't. Or maybe I should have. I don't know. Job security is a thing. Who knows? I'm pretty happy with the way life turned out. But I ended up going to Tokyo. I debuted, I became a J-pop idol, and then we were in movies, we were on Netflix, I was continuously doing modeling, I was on Fuji TV as a reporter. Things were on the up and up, things were really good, but I really hated being an idol, purely because, I don't know, I wasn't really proud of what I was doing. Everything else I could be proud of. I was so proud of my films, my appearances, my reporting, my modeling. These are all things that I loved sharing, but when it came to the idol stuff, like, it all felt fake. It was fake. We were literally curated to be dream girlfriends. It's not about how talented you are as an idol in Japan. It's about how likable and charismatic can you be to sell the dream that if people spend enough money supporting you, that maybe they'll one day get to be your girlfriend. So, and obviously they don't say that, but when I did everything else, when I did the modeling, when I did the reporting on Fuji TV, when I did all this other stuff, I felt like my fans were so genuine. They liked me because of really pure intent. I had a lot of girl fans. I had fans that were my age. I felt more comfortable in my skin. I felt prouder. I felt more comfortable meeting these fans. And then the idol fans, some of them were really great. Don't get me wrong. Some of them were super great. Some of them were super supportive and cute. We had a lot of delinquent fans like Yankee in Okinawa, but also like some of them, a lot of them, fans of the whole group. And mind you, I was the oldest one and I was 17. There were 5 of us. A lot of the fans were much older men. And I had another story for another day, but I had my situations with stalkers and with liars and maybe my mom thinks he was trying to traffic me. I don't know. I think he's just a crazy, gross dude. Just a lot of icky stuff. And I wasn't proud of being an idol, and I didn't feel like I could tell people about it, despite loving the performing part. I loved being on stage. I loved dancing and singing and performing. That part was great. It was all the extra stuff that came with it. And I was at a crossroads. I didn't know how to tell my agents. I didn't know how to tell my management company that what I really wanted to do was to cut off the idol part, or even at least transition from idol into artist. And maybe that's something that I should have done. And we were about to sign with a major label company, and I was like, now's my chance that if I do want to get out, I have to get out. And I didn't really know what to do. And at that pivotal moment in my life, I made a really bad decision, and I did a substance. Yep. And don't do drugs, kids. It's literally not worth it. I'm telling you from someone that had a really bad experience, it's not worth it. It's not worth altering your mind like that. The best case scenario was that I had a really awful time that led to really awful things. And the worst case scenario is that you get hooked or you get deported. The guy that gave me the substance, he can never come back to Japan. It was so dumb, and I'm not that kind of person, and it was so dumb, and I felt so ashamed of myself. I felt so lost. I felt so not myself, and I was looking for guidance, so I did what anybody else does, and I went to church. And that is another interesting phase in my life. I went from doing things that other people wanted to do, I went from doing things because other people wanted me to do them in the entertainment industry to doing what my church elders and leaders wanted me to do. So clearly there's a pattern of behavior here that I'm trying to shake now in my 30s. But I was just doing whatever got me a gold star, whatever got me validation, whatever made me feel liked and accepted. And that led to me going headfirst into this church and getting married way too quickly. And long story short, I got divorced. I became a kindergarten teacher and immersed myself into the workplace in that way. Eventually snapped one day. It's a weird thing. I'm kind of jumping the gun. So I start going to this church. I'm all or nothing. And then I want to be on the worship team. But then they're like, oh, you can't be an idol then because being an idol is evil and it's tempting people to sin. Also, I was like, that makes sense to me. They're also like, you should never cut your hair, you need to wear my makeup, don't wear selfies, don't talk about the money you spend. There were just so many rules, but I was just like all in. I was like, I want to do this, I want to be a leader in the church, I want to be on the worship team, I want to be an important part of this community. And so I did everything that was expected of me. And I did build and foster a relationship with God, which was super important for me at the time. I felt so fulfilled. I met amazing friends, and there was a lot of good in it too. But throughout all that, I had to cut ties with my agency. I quit willy-nilly. I hurt and inconvenienced a lot of people in the way. And in the end, I think I could have found a better balance where I was doing work that I was proud of and also fostering a relationship and building myself spiritually. But I was never really good at balance. So I went from one extreme to the next. And then one day I started becoming friends with, and so I was in the church bubble. Everything I did, I spent every single day with church people. I lived with church people, and then I was married to a church person. All my friends were church people. I spent my entire weekend at church, and that's all I knew. And then I started working and getting close with my work coworkers, and the people to this day that I feel like I was closest with were the people that I worked with. Because once I stopped coming to church as much, and once I stopped being as involved as much, the people from church, some of them reached out, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them just didn't. And it never felt real to me. I never felt like they really cared about me unless it came with the prerequisite of you're going to give your time and effort and dedication and everything to the church to be a good worker bee. I do believe that as a church, they're doing good for the community. There were just some people within the organization that maybe took their responsibilities a little bit to think of Stanford prison experiment, but in a church setting and a little bit less violent. But the mentality is the same. It's the power. I was vulnerable, and I take responsibility for all my choices. I was an adult at the end of the day, but I wish I had more self-confidence and the brazen ability to be like, I'm gonna do what I want to do, and the critical thinking to be like, let me really think about what's happening here, and let me really assess the situation for what it is. So I ended up hanging out more with my friends from work, and then they started asking me questions about what I thought. Instead of everybody being in this hive mind, I was now talking to people who had very different opinions of all the kinds of ways that I was living my life. And at first I was like, oh, they're attacking me, it's the devil. But then I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? It is important to be asking these questions. And I started hanging out with them more, and I started realizing that although I love God and I'm very spiritual and I have a love for people, and I think that church and community can be a really good thing, I'm not really living my life, and I'm not really living a life that I felt like was reflecting Jesus. So I stopped going to church, and that meant that I started realizing that I had gotten married to somebody that I really would have never gotten married to under any other circumstance. And that was really hard too. And then so I spiraled. I started drinking a lot, and I started hanging out a lot outside of work, outside of the house, because I didn't want to go home anymore. And one thing led to another, and there's a bunch of other events that I'm not going to talk about out of respect for my partner, my ex-partner, because at the end of the day, he is a good person and we were both young. But I ended up getting divorced, moving out, and leaving the country. Then I went to America. I was like, I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to go to Hollywood. And then COVID hit. And one thing led to another. Years later, here I am. And I still can't shake the dream I had when I was a young girl to be a performer, to do YouTube, to express my love for books and great stories and to tell them myself. So here I am later in life, finally truly pursuing what it is that I really want to do. For the first time in my life, I am not doing something because somebody told me that that's what they wanted me to do. I'm doing it because it's a song on my heart that I can't stop singing. So thanks for listening to my TED Talk.